The night was quiet, but not peaceful. The sky above the ruined alien city was dark, filled with broken ships and falling sparks from the orbit. The wind carried dust through the empty streets, whispering of battles long ago. A single human walked slowly, his boots heavy on the cracked ground. He was tired, hungry, and alone. His name did not matter here, because no one was left to call it. He had been traveling for days without food, searching for shelter, searching for hope. Every corner of this world felt dead. Every shadow felt dangerous, yet something in his heart pushed him forward. Humans were like that. They kept moving, even when the universe wanted them to stop. Then, in the silence, a sound came. A soft voice, weak and shaking, carried by the wind. "Human, please." The man froze, his hand moving to the weapon on his belt. No one should be here. No one should know he was here. His eyes scanned the broken walls, the empty doorways, the piles of rubble. Again, the whisper came, trembling, almost fading away. "Please, help." From the shadow of a broken building, something moved. At first he thought it was another scavenger or a machine hunter, but then he saw her. A small alien girl, no older than 10 by human eyes, her skin pale with strange glowing marks, her eyes too large for her thin face. In her arms, she carried something wrapped in cloth, holding it close to her chest. The man raised his weapon, unsure. He had seen alien tricks before. He had seen traps set with soft voices. But this girl looked too weak to stand, too desperate to fight. Her knees shook as she stepped forward, and then she fell to the ground with a cry. The cloth in her arms moved, and he saw. It was not a bundle, but a child, even smaller. Her little sister, barely breathing. Both of them were starving, both of them at the edge of death. The man's chest tightened. He had seen suffering before, but not like this. Not two children left behind in a dead city. The older sister looked up at him, tears in her glowing eyes. "Please, she needs food," she whispered, her voice almost gone. Her hands shook as she pulled the little one closer, trying to shield her. The human stood there, torn between caution and pity. His own stomach was empty, his pack nearly bare, but he reached inside and took out his last ration, a small container, a warm meal he had saved for himself. He bent down and placed it in her hands. The alien girl gasped softly, clutching it as if it were treasure. Her lips moved, but the words were barely a breath. "For my sister, thank you, human." The man said nothing, only watching as she fed the weak child. The younger one opened her eyes just a little, glowing faintly like her sister, and swallowed the food slowly. A spark of life returned to her small face. The human felt something stir in his heart, something he had tried to bury long ago. Hope. But in the back of his mind, questions burned. Who were these children, left alone in the ruins? Why were they here, when every other alien had fled or died? And why did their eyes, glowing with quiet fire, seem to hold a secret he could not yet understand? The night grew colder, and the silence returned. But it was no longer the silence of emptiness. It was the silence before something began, the encounter that would change his fate and theirs. The little sister ate slowly, her weak hands trembling as she held the warm container. Steam rose into the cold night air, carrying the smell of food, a smell that seemed out of place in this ruined world. For a moment, it felt almost human, like home, like safety. But it was only a fragile moment. The human crouched low, watching silently. His own stomach growled, but he ignored it. Hunger was nothing new to him. Loneliness was nothing new. But this was different. He had given his last meal to strangers. The older girl, still holding her sister close, lifted her glowing eyes toward him. Her lips moved, slow and careful. "Human, I will repay you," she whispered. Her voice was filled with both fear and strength. The human almost laughed at the words, but the sound never came. Repay him? With what? She was a child, lost in a city of ghosts, and yet, the way she held her words felt heavy, like a promise she could never break. He looked closer at the thing in her other hand. It was small, broken, and shaped like a toy, a little figure carved from strange metal with cracks running across it. At first he thought it was worthless, just a piece of junk. But the way she clutched it told him otherwise. Her thin fingers pressed it to her chest as if it was her life itself. She whispered again, "I will sell my toy. I will repay you, human." The man felt a strange chill in his heart. Her words were not just about food, not just about kindness. There was something more. Something hidden behind her glowing eyes, but he did not ask, not yet. The little sister coughed, weak but alive. The sound echoed in the ruins, and the human's eyes darted to the shadows. He knew danger never slept on this world. Hunters could be near, machines, scavengers, worse. He placed a hand on the ground, feeling the tremor of metal legs far away. Yes, they were moving, searching, always searching. He sank, booted up quickly, scanning the broken streets. "We can't stay here," he said, his voice low but firm. The older girl's body tensed, her arms tightening around her sister, her glowing eyes locked onto his face, searching for something, truth, maybe safety. For a moment he thought she would refuse, but then she nodded slowly. She was afraid, but she trusted him, even though he was the stranger, even though he was human. Together they moved. The girl's bare feet stumbled over stone and ash, but she refused to let her sister fall. The human carried what little gear he had left, his eyes never leaving the shadows. Every sound felt louder. Every corner felt like a trap. The hunters were close, too close. The younger sister leaned against her, whispering softly in a language the man did not understand, but he heard one word clearly. It was his kind's word. "Hope," she whispered, in the voice of a child who still believed. The human's chest tightened. Hope was a dangerous thing in a world like this, but it was also the only thing that kept him alive. They reached a broken shelter, the remains of an old station. Inside, the wind was quieter, though the air was heavy with dust. The human built a small fire, using scraps of old metal and cloth. The flames were weak but warm. The sisters huddled close, their glowing eyes reflecting the firelight. The older girl whispered again, "For my sister, thank you, human." Her voice cracked, but her gaze did not break. The man sat across from them, silent, his mind heavy with questions. Why were they here? Why were they left behind? And why did their strange toy seem to glow faintly in the firelight, as if it were more than a child's plaything? The meal had been small, but it was enough to keep them alive. And in that fragile moment, in the middle of a dead city, something unspoken passed between them, a promise, a bond, a beginning, the kind of beginning that could change everything. The fire burned low, soft light dancing on the broken walls of the shelter. The human sat with his back against the stone, his weapon close by, his eyes never leaving the shadows. The alien sisters huddled together on the other side of the flames, too weak to sleep, too scared to close their glowing eyes. The older girl kept whispering to her sister, calming her with gentle words, words the man did not understand, but he could see it, the promise in her voice, the strength of someone far too young to carry such weight. When the smaller child finally drifted into restless sleep, the older one lifted her head and looked at the human. Her eyes caught the firelight, glowing brighter for a moment. "You gave us food," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. "I will repay you." The man shook his head, a faint smile on his tired face. "There's nothing to repay," he said. "I gave what I had, because you needed it more." But she did not accept his words. Her thin fingers curled around the broken toy pressed against her chest. She held it like it was gold, like it was sacred. "I will repay you," she repeated, her voice trembling but her eyes steady. "Even if I must sell my toy, I will repay you, human." The man frowned, leaning forward. He had seen many strange relics across the stars, but this was different. The toy was cracked and ancient, shaped like a little figure with carved lines that almost seemed to move in the firelight. It looked useless, worthless, but the way it pulsed faintly in her hands told him there was something more, something hidden. He studied her face, the sharp glow of her markings, the shadow of fear still clinging to her small frame. "Why is it so important?" he asked at last, his voice low. She hesitated, clutching it tighter, then whispered, "Because it is the last thing my parents gave me before the hunters came." Her voice cracked at the word, parents, and for the first time he saw the deep wound inside her heart. "They told me, never let it go, never lose it, no matter what happens." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away, shaking her head. "And if I must sell it to repay you for saving my sister, then I will." The human felt something stir deep within him, something he had buried long ago. It was not pity, it was not sadness, it was respect. This child was standing in the ruins of her world, holding nothing but a promise, and she was ready to give up her last piece of family for honor. He leaned back, staring at the fire, unsure what to say. Before he could answer, a distant noise rolled across the dead city, a metallic echo, sharp and hollow, the sound of machines moving, hunting, searching. The girl stiffened, pulling her sister close again, her glowing eyes darting to the doorway. "They are coming," she whispered, her voice full of fear. The human reached for his weapon, his instincts sharp. The hunters never slept, never gave mercy. He rose to his feet, scanning the darkness beyond the fire. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. It meant the machines were listening, waiting. The girl pressed the toy tighter to her chest, her breath shaking. She whispered again, softer this time. "I promised, human. I will repay you." But the man did not think of repayment now. He thought only of survival. The fire flickered low, the night deepened, and the shadows seemed to move. The encounter was no longer just about kindness. It was about survival, about secrets, and about promises that could not be broken. In the ruined silence, the promise hung heavy in the air, a promise between a starving alien girl and a lone human wanderer, a promise that would bind their fates together. And in the darkness outside, the hunters drew closer, step by step. The night was heavy with silence. The fire inside the broken station burned low, throwing weak light against the walls. The human listened, his breath slow, his ears sharp. He had heard it before, the sound of hunters, machines that moved without rest, built only to track and destroy, and now they were close, too close. The older alien girl pressed her sister to her chest, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She whispered, "They found us." The human gave a quick nod, his weapon already in his hand. He moved to the doorway and peered into the darkness. At first there was nothing, only broken stone and drifting dust. Then he saw it, a faint red light, sliding across the street like a snake searching for prey, a scanning drone, and behind it, the heavy steps of hunters, their metal feet crushing the ground with every move. The man turned back quickly. "We can't stay, we move now." The girl swallowed hard, her arms tightening around her sister. She tried to stand, but her knees trembled, weak from hunger and fear. Without a word, the human bent and lifted the smaller child into his arms. She was light, too light, and her faint breath touched his shoulder. The older sister followed close, still clutching her broken toy as if it were life itself. They slipped into the shadows, leaving the fire behind. The streets stretched before them like a maze of stone and ash. Every step echoed. Every sound felt too loud. The hunters were coming, their voices sharp and cold. "Target detected. Scan the sector. Eliminate." The girl's glowing eyes darted to the man's face. Desperate, searching. He gave her a quick look, steady and firm, as if to say, "Keep moving." And so they did. Through broken alleys, over shattered walls, into the skeleton of an old market where empty stalls stood like gravestones. But the hunters were faster. Their red lights cut through the darkness, sweeping across the ruins. One beam grazed the girl's shoulder, and she gasped, ducking low. The human raised his weapon and fired, the blast cutting through the night. The drone exploded, falling in a shower of sparks, but the sound was like a signal. The rest of the hunters turned, their mechanical voices rising. Human detected. Eliminate. The chase began. The human ran hard, the little one in his arms, the older girl stumbling close behind. Metal footsteps thundered after them, crushing stone, breaking doors, tearing through the ruins. The red beams cut through the air, striking walls, leaving glowing scars. The girl tripped, but the man grabbed her arm and pulled her forward, not slowing for a second. He had been hunted before, many times, but never while carrying such fragile hope in his hands. They reached a collapsed bridge, the only path ahead blocked by rubble. The girl's eyes widened in panic. "No way, we are trapped." The hunters were closing in, their voices echoing through the empty streets. The human scanned the ruins quickly, his eyes sharp. There, a narrow passage between fallen pillars, almost invisible in the dark. "Here," he said, pushing her forward. The girl squeezed through first, clutching her toy tight. Then he followed with the younger child in his arms. The space was narrow, the walls scraping his shoulders, but they pushed through. Behind them, the hunters' lights cut across the rubble, but the machines were too large to follow. Their metal claws scraped against stone, frustrated, their voices rising in cold anger. "Target. Lost. Searching." The three of them stumbled into another part of the ruins, their breaths sharp and fast. The human set the smaller child down gently, letting her rest against her sister. The older girl's chest rose and fell quickly, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and determination. "You saved us," she whispered, her voice trembling. The man shook his head, scanning the shadows again. "Not yet," he said. They will keep searching. The night was far from over. The chase had only begun. And in her hands, the toy pulsed faintly with a light of its own, as if it had felt the danger too, as if it was waiting for the moment it was needed most. The ruins were quiet again, but it was not a safe kind of quiet. It was the silence after a storm, the breath between one danger and the next. The human crouched low beside a wall, his weapon still warm from the last fight. Beside him, the alien sisters huddled together, their small bodies pressed close. The younger child had fallen asleep, her face pale, her breathing shallow. The older one sat awake, clutching the toy against her chest, her glowing eyes fixed on the fire the man had built. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The man stared into the weak flames, wondering how much longer he could protect them. His supplies were gone, his strength fading, and the hunters would not stop. But then he looked at the girl, and he saw the way she held that toy, the way her fingers trembled when she touched it. There was something she was not telling him, and he needed to know. At last, he broke the silence, his voice low and steady. "That toy you carry, it's not just a toy, is it?" The girl stiffened, her glowing eyes snapping up to meet his. For a moment she said nothing, only held it tighter. Then she whispered, "It is all I have left of my parents." Her voice cracked on the word parents, and she blinked fast, fighting tears. "They gave it to me before the hunters came. They told me never to lose it, no matter what." The man leaned closer, studying the strange object in her hands. In the firelight, the cracks across its surface seemed to shift, glowing faintly as though something hidden was inside. "It doesn't look like any toy I've seen," he said. The girl shook her head slowly, her small hands trembling. "It is old, older than me, older than the city," she whispered. "My people once ruled the stars, but now we are hunted, broken, scattered." She lowered her head, her voice almost a breath. "This is not just a toy, human. It is a key." The man's eyes narrowed, his heartbeat quickening. "A key to what?" he asked. She shook her head again. "I don't know. My parents never told me, only that one day it would save us." Her glowing eyes lifted to his face, sharp with fear and hope. "And now, I promised, I will repay you for saving my sister, even if it means giving this to you." The man felt a strange weight settle in his chest. He looked at her, just a child, small and fragile, carrying the burden of an entire lost world. She wanted to give away the last memory of her family, the last gift her parents left her, not for power, not for safety, but because of a promise. He shook his head firmly. "No, keep it." Her eyes widened, confusion and disbelief flashing across her face. "But," he cut her off, his voice steady, "keep it, because it is yours, because it means more than you know, because your parents gave it to you for a reason." The girl's lips trembled, and for the first time, tears slid down her glowing cheeks. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of relief. She held the toy tighter, whispering, "Thank you, human." Outside, the ruins groaned as the wind pushed through broken walls, carrying with it the faint metallic echo of hunters searching. The man stood and checked his weapon again, his eyes scanning the dark horizon. The girl looked at him, her small body trembling, but her voice steady. "My people used to fear humans," she said softly, "but you gave us food when no one else would. You shared your fire when you had nothing left." Her gaze dropped to her sleeping sister, then back to him. "I will follow you, human, because I believe your kindness is not weakness." The man turned back to her, his jaw tight, his eyes sharp. He had not asked for followers, he had not asked for promises. But in this dead world, in this ruined city, something was beginning, something neither of them fully understood yet. The fire flickered low, the toy glowed faintly in her hands, and the hunters moved closer in the night. The truth had been revealed, but it was only the first piece of a far greater mystery. The fire had burned to ashes, leaving only faint smoke that drifted into the night. The human pressed the last spark out with his boot, erasing the light. No trace could remain, not when the hunters were so close. He listened, his head tilted toward the wind. The sound was there again, metal feet striking stone, the low hum of machines scanning the air. It was closer now, much closer. The older alien girl clutched her sister tighter, her glowing eyes wide. She whispered, "They never stop. They never sleep." The human nodded once, his jaw set. "They won't stop until they find us," he said quietly, "but we won't let them." He moved quickly, checking the ruined walls for escape routes, But the city was broken, paths cut off by collapsed towers and fallen bridges. Every choice was a trap, every shadow might betray them. And worse, the younger sister was fading again, her breath shallow, her small body trembling with weakness. The older girl touched her sister's forehead, panic in her voice. "She can't run anymore," she whispered. "If we move too fast, she won't survive." The man's chest tightened. He had carried wounded before, soldiers, civilians, but this felt different. He looked down at the child's pale face, at the faint glow in her closed eyes. If they slowed, the hunters would catch them. If they ran, she might not make it. It was a choice with no good answer. Then the sound grew louder, echoing through the ruins like a storm. Red lights cut across the far walls, sweeping in steady patterns. The hunters were near, scanning every broken stone, every breath of air. The man raised his weapon, but he knew it was not enough. Not against so many, not while protecting the sisters. The older girl's voice broke the silence. "I can distract them," she whispered, clutching the strange toy tight. "I can draw them away. You can take my sister and escape." The man's eyes snapped to her, sharp and angry. "No," he said, his voice like steel. "You run. You protect her. I'll fight." But she shook her head, her glowing tears catching the faint starlight. "You already gave us food, already gave us safety. If you fight, you'll die. If I go, they will chase me." The man stepped closer, gripping her shoulder firmly. "Listen," he said, his voice hard, but his eyes steady. "I've been hunted before. I know how to survive. You're just a child, and children don't fight alone." Her lips trembled, but she did not argue. Her eyes burned with fear, but also with something stronger. Trust. The sound of metal claws scraping stone grew louder. Closer, the hunters' voices echoed in cold, mechanical tones. "Target detected. Life signs confirmed. Eliminate." The man knelt quickly, lifting the younger sister again, her light weight pressing against his arms. He motioned for the older girl to follow. Together they moved through the ruins, every step careful, every breath silent. But the hunters were closing in fast, their red beams cutting across the darkness, searching. One beam swept past the edge of their hiding place, missing them by inches. The girl gasped quietly, pressing a hand to her mouth. The man leaned close, whispering, "Stay quiet. Stay low." They crawled through a gap in the rubble, the man pushing the child through first, then the girl, before sliding in himself. The space was narrow, the air thick with dust. Behind them, heavy metal feet struck the ground, shaking the walls. The hunters were just a breath away, their scanners sweeping the ground. The human tightened his grip on his weapon, ready to fire if needed. But the girl clutched her toy tighter. "Whoa," whispering words in her language, words he could not understand. The cracks in the toy glowed faintly, brighter than before, as if responding to her fear. The hunters stopped outside the rubble, their voices rising in unison. "Life signs detected. Anomaly detected. Searching." The girl's eyes widened, staring at the glow in her hands. The human saw it too, his heart pounding. It was no toy, no simple relic. Whatever it was, the hunters wanted it. And now, they were closer than ever. The hunters' red lights crawled across the ruins like angry eyes. Their metal voices echoed, sharp and cold. "Life signs detected. Anomaly confirmed. Eliminate." The human pressed his back against the stone, the younger child resting weak in his arms, her faint breath warming his neck. Beside him, the older girl clutched her toy close, the glow in its cracks pulsing like a heartbeat. The man knew they could not hide much longer. The hunters would tear through the rubble piece by piece until nothing was left. He glanced at the girl, her eyes wide with fear. She whispered, "What do we do, human?" His jaw tightened, his gaze steady. "I'll draw them away," he said. "I'll buy you time." Her face froze, the glow in her eyes trembling. "No, if you go, they will kill you," she whispered, her voice breaking. The man shook his head, a small smile touching his tired face. "Better me than you," he said softly. "You have your sister, she needs you alive, she needs you strong." The girl's tears spilled, glowing faint against her pale skin. "You gave us food, you gave us hope, and now you give your life?" Her words cut like knives, but the man did not waver. He shifted the younger child into her sister's arms, steady but firm. The little one stirred weakly, her small voice whispering a single word. "Hope." The older girl clung to her sister, shaking her head again, but the man had already risen, weapon in hand, his eyes cold and sharp. The sound of metal claws scraping closer filled the night. He turned toward the noise, his steps slow but certain. This was not the first time he had walked toward death, and it might not be the last. But for once, it was not for himself, it was for them. He slipped from the rubble into the open street. The hunters spotted him instantly, their red beams locking on. Human detected. Priority target. Eliminate. The man lifted his weapon and fired, the blast cutting through one drone in a flash of sparks. Another beam shot past his head, scorching the wall, but he did not run. He stood his ground, firing again and again, his voice rising in a fierce cry. "Come and get me!" The hunters surged forward, their heavy steps shaking the earth. Behind the rubble, the sisters watched with wide eyes, trembling. The older girl whispered to her sister, clutching her close. "We must believe in him. We must believe." The toy pulsed brighter, its cracks glowing like fire. The girl felt it hum in her hands, alive, awake. It was as if it answered her fear, her hope, her promise. She pressed it to her chest, whispering, "Please, protect him." Out in the street, the man fell to one knee, his weapon smoking. He had taken down 2 hunters, but more closed in, their claws raised, their voices cold. "Eliminate! Eliminate!" He raised his weapon again, but it clicked empty, no more shots left. He clenched his jaw, ready to fight with his bare hands if needed. He thought of the sisters, of their glowing eyes, of the word whispered by the smaller child, hope, and he refused to fall without giving them more time. Then, from behind him, the ruins lit up with a strange glow. The hunters froze, their red eyes flickering as the light washed over the street. The man turned slightly, his breath catching. The girl stood there, clutching the toy, its cracks blazing like a star. Her eyes shone brighter than ever before, filled not with fear, but with fierce courage. Her voice rang out, strong and steady. "You will know. To take him. You will not take us." The hunters shifted, their scanners flickering, their steps uncertain. The man stared at her, stunned. The toy was no longer a broken relic. It was awakening, responding, defending. The girl stepped forward, her sister in her arms, her promise burning in her voice. "You gave us food, human. Now we give you hope." The street glowed with a strange light. The hunters stopped moving, their red eyes flickering, their claws raised in mid-strike. The human froze where he knelt, staring back at the girl standing in the rubble. Her small hands held the toy against her chest, but it was no longer broken, no longer dull. Its cracks blazed like lines of fire, pulsing with energy that hummed in the air. The girl's voice carried through the silence, steady and sharp. "You will not take him. You will not take us." Her glowing tears fell, but her eyes burned with strength. The hunters shifted, their scanners buzzing. Anomaly confirmed. Unidentified energy source. Priority capture. The human pushed himself to his feet, his breath hard. He had seen weapons, he had seen bombs, but never something like this. The toy in her hands was alive, awake. It hummed like a heartbeat, answering her fear, her courage, her promise. The girl stepped forward slowly, her sister in her arms. The toy pulsed brighter, sending ripples of light across the ruined walls. The hunters staggered back for the first time, their red beams scattering as if confused. One raised its claw to strike, but the girl lifted the toy high. The glow surged outward, a wave of light that slammed into the machine. It sparked, convulsed, then collapsed into the dirt, its red eyes dark. The human's jaw tightened, disbelief cutting through his exhaustion. She had destroyed it without touching it. No weapon, no fire, just light. The girl gasped, her knees shaking from the force. The younger child clung to her, whispering softly, "Sister, it listens to you." Another hunter charged, its heavy feet eking stone, its claws raised to crush. The man leapt forward, ready to block, ready to die if he must. But before the claws could fall, the toy glowed again, brighter than before. The air itself shook, and the machine froze mid-attack, its body locked in place. Then, with a crack of energy, it shattered, falling to pieces in front of them. The girl staggered, nearly falling, but the man caught her arm, steadying her. Her glowing eyes met his, filled with shock. I don't know how I did that," she whispered, her breath shaking. The man looked at the toy, at the light still humming inside it. "It's not a toy," he said firmly. "It's something far older, far stronger." The girl swallowed hard, staring at the object in her hands. "My parents. They said it would save us one day," she whispered. Her eyes lifted to him, glowing with fear and hope. Maybe that day is now." The hunters regrouped at the far end of the street, their voices rising in metallic anger. Priority threat. Secure the artifact. Destroy resistance. Dozens of red lights flared in the distance. Crawling closer through the ruins, the human's grip tightened on his weapon, his jaw set. "They're not going to stop," he said. "They'll come until nothing is left." The girl nodded slowly, her small hands trembling as the toy pulsed again. "I don't want to fight," she whispered. "But if we run, they will find us. If we hide, they will hunt us forever." Her sister's weak hand touched her arm, her tiny voice soft but certain. "Hope," the younger one whispered again, the single word like a spark in the dark. The human looked at them both, then back at the glowing relic. He had never believed in destiny, never believed in miracles. But standing in the ruined street, with two fragile lives at his side and a weapon of light in the hands of a child, he began to wonder if maybe fate had chosen them. The toy pulsed again, brighter, stronger, as if ready for what was coming. The hunters advanced, their steps shaking the ground, their voices cold and endless. The man raised his weapon, the girl raised the relic, and the child whispered hope, and together they prepared to fight. The ruins were quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. The broken street was littered with shattered hunters, their red eyes dark, their metal bodies twisted and smoking. The glow from the strange relic still pulsed faintly in the girl's hands, though weaker now, as if it too was tired. The human leaned against a cracked wall, his chest rising and falling hard. His weapon hung loose at his side, the last of its energy spent. Blood trickled down his arm where a hunter's claw had cut him, his breath ragged. But he was alive, and so were they. The older girl knelt beside him, clutching her sister with one arm, and the glowing relic with the other. Her eyes were wide, not with fear this time, but with something else, shock, awe, and gratitude. "You came back," she whispered, her voice trembling. I thought they would take you." The man gave a faint smile, though his body shook with exhaustion. "I told you," he said softly. "I don't fall that easy." His eyes flicked toward the relic in her hands, its light flickering in rhythm with her heartbeat. "That thing saved us," he muttered, "but it almost burned you out doing it." The girl looked down at the object, her fingers brushing its cracked surface. "It listens to me," she whispered, "but it takes something from me too." Her hand trembled as she held it closer. "It feels alive, like it knows what I feel." The younger sister stirred in her arms, her small voice weak but clear. "It protected us," she whispered, her glowing eyes opening just a little. The man crouched lower, meeting her gaze. "You're strong, little one," he said, "stronger than most soldiers I've known." Her lips curved into the faintest smile before her eyes closed again, slipping back into fragile sleep. The older girl's tears fell silently, her grip tightening on her sister. "Every time I think I'll lose her, you save her," she whispered, looking at the human with eyes that glowed like fire. "I will not forget, human. I will not." He shook his head, wincing at the pain in his shoulder. "This isn't about me," he said. "This is about keeping you both alive no matter what." But deep inside, he knew something had changed. It wasn't just about survival anymore. The bond between them had grown heavier, stronger, tied by sacrifice and trust. The girl lifted the relic again, studying it in the faint light of the ruined street. Its cracks pulsed slowly now, as though resting after battle. She whispered, "My parents said it would save us, but I don't think they meant just us." Her gaze turned toward the human, sharp and steady. "I think it is meant for something greater, maybe even for you." The man frowned, shaking his head. "I don't need it," he said quickly. "I just need to keep you alive." But a small part of him wondered if she was right. The relic had responded to her yes, but when he had fought, when he had stood his ground, it had glowed brighter, as though answering him too. In the distance, a low metallic echo carried on the wind. The hunters were not gone, not completely. They would send more, stronger ones, until the relic was theirs. The man's hand tightened on his weapon, his eyes narrowing. "They'll be back," he said firmly, "and next time, they'll come harder." The girl nodded slowly, holding her sister close. "But we'll be ready," she whispered, her glowing eyes locked on his. "You gave us food, you gave us life. And now, with this, we will give you a future." The relic pulsed one last time, a soft hum echoing through the ruins. The man's chest tightened at the sound, his mind heavy with questions. He did not believe in destiny, but standing there, blood on him, his arm and fire in the girl's eyes, he wondered if fate had already chosen the path. The silence deepened, but it was not the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence before the next storm. The air was heavy. Dust drifted down from broken towers as the ground trembled beneath iron steps. The human tightened his grip on his weapon, though he knew its charge was nearly gone. The sisters stood close behind him, the older clutching the relic, the younger clinging weakly to her arm. The hum of machines grew louder, closer, until it filled the ruins like thunder. From the shadows of the shattered city, the hunters appeared. Not two, not three, but dozens, their red eyes glowing like fire in the dark. Their claws scraped stone, their voices echoing cold and merciless. Priority artifact located. Capture. Eliminate resistance. The man's breath was steady, though his body ached. He had faced death before, but never like this. He turned his head slightly, looking at the girl. Her glowing eyes met his, and for a moment there was no fear, only resolve. "You stand behind me," he said firmly, "no matter what happens." But she shook her head, her voice sharp. "No, human. We stand with you." The hunters surged forward, their heavy steps shaking the ground. The man fired first, the blast striking one square in the chest, sending it crashing to the ground in sparks. Another beam shot past him, grazing his arm, but he did not stop. He roared, charging forward into the swarm, his weapon blazing. The hunters closed around him, claws flashing, voices rising. "Eliminate! Eliminate!" Behind him, the relic pulsed, its cracks glowing like molten fire. The girl clutched it tight, whispering words in her language. Her tears glowed as they fell, but her voice grew stronger. "Protect him. Protect us." The relic answered, its light bursting outward. A wave of energy struck the front line of hunters, tearing them apart in a shower of sparks. The ground shook as the machines collapsed, their red eyes darkening. The man staggered, turning to look, his eyes wide. She stood there, small, all in trembling, but with power burning in her hands. The hunters adapted quickly, their voices sharp. "Artifact activation confirmed. Increase priority. Destroy human." They rushed harder, faster, their red beams slicing through walls, through stone. The man gritted his teeth, firing until his weapon clicked empty. He threw it aside, drawing the blade at his side. Metal clashed against metal as he struck one, dodged another, kicking it back with a roar. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. The older girl cried out, lifting the relic high. Its light burned brighter, spilling across the ruins. The hunters faltered, their red eyes flickering, their steps unsure. The younger sister, weak but awake, whispered one word again, her tiny voice trembling. "Hope." The relic pulsed in answer, brighter than ever before. The light wrapped around them like a shield, humming with ancient power. The hunters struck, but their claws shattered against the glow. They fired beams of red, but the light swallowed them whole, turning them into sparks in the air. The man stood inside the shield, his blade ready, but his eyes fixed on the girl. She was shaking, her knees weak, the relic burning her hands with its power. "Stop," he shouted. "It's killing you." But she shook her head, tears blazing down her cheeks. "No, human, this is how I repay you. This is how I save you." The relic roared with light, a storm of energy flooding the street. The hunters screamed in their metallic voices as their bodies tore apart. The ground cracked, walls collapsed, the city itself seemed to shiver under the power. When the light faded, silence fell again. Dozens of hunters lay broken, their red eyes gone. The girl collapsed to her knees, the relic still glowing faintly in her hands. The man rushed to her side, lifting her before she hit the ground. Her glowing eyes looked up at him, weak but steady. "I told you, I would repay you," she whispered, her voice fading. The younger sister crawled close, clutching her sister's arm, whispering through her tears, "Don't leave me, please don't leave me." The man held them both close, his chest rising with heavy breath, his eyes sharp. The battle was won, but at a terrible cost, and he knew, deep down, that this was not the end. The relic still hummed, alive, waiting. The storm had only just begun. The battle was over. The ruins lay silent once more, but the silence felt heavier than before. Broken hunters were scattered across the street like fallen giants, their red eyes dark forever. The dust slowly settled, carrying with it the echo of the fight, the memory of light that had shaken the city. The human knelt in the rubble, the two sisters in his arms, The younger one clung weakly to her sister, whispering her name over and over. The older girl's body trembled, her glowing eyes half closed, her breath shallow. In her hands, the relic still pulsed faintly, its cracks glowing like embers at the end of a fire. The man's voice was rough, his chest heavy. "Don't you dare give up now," he muttered, holding her tighter. "You're stronger than this, you hear me?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile, her voice weak but clear. "You gave us food, you gave us life. I gave you hope." Her glowing tears slid down her cheeks, but her eyes did not close. "I will not break my promise," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I will stay. I will live. For her. For you." The younger sister pressed her forehead against her sister's shoulder, glowing tears on her small face. "Together," she whispered, her tiny voice steady. "We will stay together." The relic in her hands hummed once more, brighter for a moment, as if answering that vow. The man felt the hum run through his chest, through his bones, as if the light itself was listening. Not just a weapon, not just a key, something alive, something that both should on them together. Slowly, the older girl's strength returned, just enough for her to sit upright. The human helped her, steadying her shoulder, his jaw tight but his eyes softer than they had ever been. He had seen death many times, but tonight he had seen something else, a spark that refused to die, even when the universe tried to crush it. The three of them sat in the ruins, the broken city silent around them. For the first time, the man allowed himself to breathe deeply, to let the weight of survival slip from his shoulders, but only for a moment, because he knew this was not the end. The hunters would return, stronger, hungrier. The relic had revealed its power, and now the entire machine horde would come to claim it. The older girl turned her glowing eyes toward him, her small hands still holding the relic. "My people once ruled the stars," she whispered, her voice quiet but steady. "We lost everything. We became prey. But maybe this is the beginning of something new." Her gaze locked onto his, sharp and filled with something beyond her years. "Humans and my kind, together, we can fight back." The man looked at her, at the younger child curled against her side, at the faint glow of the relic in her hands. He had never believed in destiny, never believed in chosen paths. But sitting there, surrounded by the broken remains of their enemies, he felt something stir in him. Not just duty, not just survival, hope. The younger sister stirred, lifting her glowing eyes toward him, her tiny voice soft. "You gave us a meal, human," she whispered. "We gave you a future." The words struck him harder than any hunter's claw. For a long moment he said nothing, only stared at them, the weight of those words sinking into his heart. Finally he stood, his body aching but his spirit unbroken. He held out his hand to the older girl, his voice firm. "Then let's walk that future. Together." She placed her small hand in his, her grip weak but steady. Her sister leaned against her side, and together they rose in the broken city, three fragile figures standing tall against the darkness. The relic pulsed once more, brighter than before, as if it too had chosen its path. The hunters would return, the battles would be harder, the universe would not show mercy, but they were not alone anymore. They had a promise, they had hope, and sometimes in a universe filled with endless war, that was enough to begin again.